A very warm welcome, everyone. This is Jimmy, your favorite NLP coach. We have here a special guest. We have here Awana from Change Finance, and we also have here Julian. Julian, how are you doing?
Doing great. How are you? How are you,
I'm
Anna?
doing fine. So Julian is our FA lead. He knows everything about FA, the fundamentals. So if you have any questions during the live stream about FA fundamentals, ask him anything. But we also have here Awana from Change Finance. And maybe for those who are not aware, Change Finance is a decentralized exchange, and decentralized exchanges are really hot, especially now with the FTX collapse. Awana, how are you doing?
Good, good. I'm actually having a pretty full day. I've been up since 7 a.m. working. It's now like 7 p.m. So, but working in this field, as much as we do means, we must be doing something right. So we're
Yeah,
good.
yeah, it keeps you from the street, is what they told me. And building stuff, especially crypto, it consumes a lot of time. So big respect for that. Awana, I want to thank you, of course, for joining this live stream. And I want to particularly talk about change finance. Could you maybe introduce change finance a little bit for the audience?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Change Finance started as a decentralized exchange, but recently has moved to actually being the most liquid DEX aggregator on the market. So once we got to this point, we kind of shifted our direction and in a bit of a different way, um, as opposed to how we were promoting the app before that. I guess there's just so much about the Change app. We have time framing as the passive income solution that you've mentioned you wanted to talk about. We have escrow contracts, we have decentralized options, we have decentralized futures, and so on and so forth. We could probably talk forever, but I guess right now we're focusing on the cross-chain liquidity aggregator, which is probably one of our strongest assets at the moment. And yeah, that would be change in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's change in a nutshell, and I'm pretty sure there's much more than that alone. Now we are in a bear market. People are pretty hesitant in with trading. Some of them they are like just holding their assets, hoping for a new bull run and bull cycle. And some of people they are just holding their stables, just doing nothing with that. So, the thing is like if someone is resourceful enough he could find some passive income strategies. Could you tell me something about like the time frame, like how can people actually earn passive income through the dex change app?
Okay, so basically, this is just an overall comment and not strictly related to the Change Finance app. But if you do want to, still gain passive income, I still strongly encourage everyone to go towards a decentralized form of staking, one that doesn't imply you losing your assets. And as I said, I'm not only talking about Change Finance. There are actually quite a few other decentralized products that have started, promoting their decentralized forms of staking. I'm not very familiar with them, but once someone does their research and they're fairly certain a project is safe or it's actually decentralized and the tech is solid, then they should go for that. Because as you've seen lately, centralized exchanges are, kind of shaky right now. You don't really know what to do. You don't know who to trust. And, the best possible approach is just like in our case is to trust the code basically that kind of forces the assets to do a specific action after a certain period. For time framing, for example, what we do is basically split an asset into two defined periods of time. So imagine you just have, I don't know, 10 BTC or 5 BTC or whatever. And once you go to the earn module or you buy time framed assets in the futures DEX, you're basically going to end up with the back portion of the asset. You're still going to have ownership of that over that back portion. And when you lose custody of, or better said, what goes to the smart contract, the contract is just going to be the front portion of the asset. But that front portion of the asset is basically code-wise just a mirror of the original asset. It's not something that you can or we can keep after the maturity date. The code is going to force the asset to become full after the maturity date, which right now I think is December at the end of the year. And there's nothing the team can do about it. There's nothing anyone can do about it. What happens is the front portion of the asset basically burns out. So, okay, let's say, for example, like even like a hacker, if somehow a hacker manages to, which is impossible, but okay, for the sake of argument, if they manage to hack into change, right? And they gain custody of that front portion of the asset, it has very, very limited use cases. It's not like he can do anything with it because at the end of the year, it's just going to go poof. It's going to burn out. He's not going to be able to do anything with what he got because that's not the asset. The asset is still on the user's address in the user's wallet, and he always has control of it. But again, he's going to have some limitations in regards to what he can actually do with that back portion of the asset.
Yeah, decentralized how it should be. Having custody of your own assets is especially now more important than ever. I mean, we have seen the withdrawals from different exchanges. There's this distrust, and I believe that decentralized exchanges can fix that distrust because people can then solely rely on on code on decentralized exchanges. But sometimes when people are asking me about passive income, they're always asking me like, what are the risks of liquidity mining? I have a hard time to explain that. How would you explain that, Awana, about the risks of liquidity mining?
Well, generally or specifically for change finance?
Well, let's keep it first generally, and then we can narrow it down to change finance.
Well, I think that probably the most important one that needs to be mentioned is the volatility of the assets themselves, which right now, as you can see, is just like you don't even have to think about, okay, is it secure? Fine, it's secure. Is it decentralized? Okay, it's decentralized. But the assets I pull, if they're not stables, like USDT or USDC or whatnot, then you're automatically going to think, but what if the value drops? Even if I pull them, okay, maybe I do get some passive income, but at the same time, if the value just drops too hard, then I won't end up gaining anything. So that's probably one of the biggest fears that users have at this moment. And of course, there's impermanent loss when it comes to the pairs you're staking. And again, the market being so volatile at the moment, impermanent loss is actually a more emphatic danger than it ever was in the past, because people are now thinking I might lose a lot because of volatility if I have them in liquidity pools, because they either lose value because the market is going down, or I think it's going to go down, or because I'm going to see a lot of impermanent loss because of the ups and downs of the market. So I guess these are probably the general risks that people consider right now, aside from security and all that. In the Change app, of course, if you go for options liquidity pools, for example, they're also highly volatile, while the APYs are really high. And in the end, if you're a experienced options trader, you should be able to compensate for the losses and make good money out of them. There are some risks related to volatility as well. If you have a certain pair in the liquidity in the USDT versus Change liquidity pool, we've seen Change rise a bit lately, so that automatically means that you're going to see some impermanent loss there. If it's just a gradual shift, then there's not really a problem. But if it's like a really big shift, then you're going to see some loss. But again, if we are returning to futures liquidity pools, which I was talking about earlier, through time framing, then that risk is obsolete, because basically what you pull is a time-framed asset versus a spot asset. But at the end of the year, when the maturity date arrives, you're going to receive the spot asset itself, and it doesn't really matter if there was some volatility during the year, because they become one. So that's one of the things that we successfully solved with time framing technology and with futures liquidity pools. I think if you had assets, Jimmy, and futures liquidity pools, I think you notice that at the end of the year, you're going to receive the whole amount as spot assets. So it doesn't really matter if you did have some impermanent loss during the year, unless you did exit the liquidity pool and did lose some on that.
Yeah, that's also what I can recall. So if I pull, let's say, $20,000 in a pool, a spot, and $20,000 time framed, and then at the end of the year, the time framed assets turns automatically into spot. So there's indeed no permanent loss. And permanent loss is maybe something I think the average wants to avoid. So impermanent loss, like it's one of the risks of liquidity mining. What about like vulnerable smart contracts? Because sometimes we do see that a smart contract they get exploited or hacked. And this also pushes down a little bit like the trust in decentralized exchanges. What's your take on that?
Well, at the moment, it's really difficult for the average user to fully evaluate the trustworthiness when it comes to code, unless you have some really solid background knowledge of code, or you have friends who are devs or something like that. It's really difficult for you to spot projects that have a flimsy code or have serious loopholes or bugs. I think I just heard today about a DeFi project that did have a loophole, and probably, I don't know, it's not confirmed yet, but I think it got hacked. What we did to kind of secure our users in regards to this, aside from, of course, offering the code and explaining how it was made, was patenting our DCRM fusion tech. And through that, we kind of reassured everyone that, okay, this is how we did it, this is how it works. And we try to offer our users a simple explanation as to how it works. But then again, if you're not very advanced, it's a bit difficult to say I'm 100% sure that this project's code is just bulletproof. But there are some stuff. There is some stuff you can look at. For example, you can look at the CEO, which at the moment is for Change Finance, DJ Kian. He's also founder at the Fusion Foundation. He also co-founded AnySwap. He also co-founded VeChain, Bitse, Quantum. So if you look at his track record and what he has done this far, you kind of that's an additional layer of trust. Okay, this guy is solid. This guy has done this and that successfully until now. The Fusion DCRM time has never been hacked until now, and probably never will be, because as we mentioned, we wanted to make sure that there are no loopholes. When the DCRM tech was actually first worked on, and we started working on it in 2019. I wasn't even part of the team back then. DJ and the Fusion Foundation actually, worked with some of the best cryptographers in the world at that time. I think I can send you a list with the names so you can look into them yourself. So doing that type of research when it comes to the team who worked on the tech, what the track record is, and so on, you kind of get a better view of what could be perceived as a safe decentralized exchange versus one that even if it claims it has great security and great code, then you can't really verify it for sure unless you're very advanced in the tech field.
Yeah, that's also what I agree on. If you don't understand coding, I think 90% is not advanced or not that advanced. Then you basically cannot, determine if a smart contract is safe or not. You see nowadays, of course, that a lot of DEXs are conducting smart contract audits. Do you find them reliable? Is it something we can rely on, or is it something you just take with a grain of salt?
Well, again, there's a lot of auditing firms right now. I think the probably the most widely known is the one that we did our audit with is Certic, right?
Mhm.
And usually, yeah, these guys are pretty thorough. I haven't. I don't think I've seen any recently any DeFi projects that have certain audits on specific contracts that got hacked. But the thing with audits is that they do this one-time audit at a specific moment in time for the project, while the project still keeps evolving and can change things. So these loopholes can appear over time. It's not like, okay, we started off with a circuit audit, everything was in place, everything was safe, but then some somewhere around, I don't know, a year later, someone kind of screwed up, or we didn't notice this, or something happened, but the audit was already outdated. So regardless of, and this can happen not on a yearly basis, and can even happen on a daily basis. If the code is not set in stone and you keep changing it over time, this can happen from one day to another. I had the audit yesterday, and tomorrow I add another module, or I add another feature to the app, and then you're no longer sure if that specific module is safe or not, and you can't really go and, okay, in our case, we can't really go every day going back to Certic and making sure that is this safe, are we going to audit this again and again and again. You can't really do that back and forth with them, because it's not productive. But once you have like a very secure infrastructure, like the blockchain, the Fusion blockchain, which the Change app runs on, and using the DCRM tech, then whatever you built on it, which is just an interface, and changes case, because the app is just a utility app. It's not an infrastructure project. Then you actually have the safety that if the tech behind the Fusion blockchain is solid, the audit is solid, then you kind of can make an educated guess, let's say, that the project is safe. But yeah, I don't know. There's also the part that you've mentioned, that there's more than one auditing firm, and you don't know if you should take this with a grain of salt, like the audits, if they're thorough, if the people working on it are really good, and so on. I can't really say that you should 100% rely on audits, but it's definitely just another layer of trust that's added to a project. If it has like a serious audit behind it, then yeah, it just adds up to that security and trust that you're looking for. Because I think it's just layers of trust. You have to, you look at the team, you look at the white paper, you look at the infrastructure, you look at the audits, and based on going through these layers, you reach a point where you're like, okay, now I can trust this project.
That makes completely sense. So for the audience, let me summarize this. The team track record. Smart contracts, they could be reliable, but if the company or the DEX itself added a new module or whatsoever, then it can come with some vulnerable with some threats. And Juana, I talked with some bunch of people, especially last year, about liquidity mining, and there was at a certain time a hype around that, and you saw these really shady liquidity mining services where you can get like really high APY of 10,000%, 20,000%. For me personally, that's of course a red flag. So what else could be a red flag when it comes to liquidity mining for those who are interested in passive income?
Well, aside from the obvious, which you've mentioned, like 10,000 or 20,000% of, interest. Again, it's about, looking at where the money goes, where it is. In futures liquidity pools case, as I said, the user actually still owns the asset, and even further, the user, if he has his seed phrase, our wallet being decentralized, he can just import his seed phrase into MetaMask, into Token Pocket, into BitKeep, into whatever, and he's automatically going to import all of his liquidity pools along with that. So I guess you have to look at whether those liquidity pools are the same as, have the same level of decentralization as the assets that you keep within your wallet, meaning can you import them into another wallet if you have to. In worst case scenario, let's say, the apocalypse of crypto comes and I don't know, something really, really bad happens, and even the change app just goes down, then you do have the security that the assets are within your own custody, that you have the seed phrase and you can immediately import them into whatever other wallet you have at your disposal at the time. So what you basically have to look at is if those liquidity pools are at least partially decentralized or fully decentralized, or how the mechanism behind those are as well. Because typically in centralized exchanges, I think we've seen recently a lot of stuff happening simply because of that, because people did not really know what was happening with their money once they deposited their money. They lost ownership of the assets, and people got to play around with them, and now it depends on whether they did good stuff or bad stuff. And it's not even about if the, let's say, the project owner is malintended or is trying to I don't know, rob people or anything like that. There's a lot of stuff that can happen through mismanagement of assets. They can invest in something thinking that, okay, we're going to get, with the best intentions in mind, we're going to get a better return for our users. But at the end of the day, they might, they might make a mistake. And then basically the assets that the users had are gone like that. And furthermore, what I've seen lately is that, and this craze of people trying to, be more secure and feel safer was asked for everyone, including centralized and decentralized exchanges, asked to show a proof of reserve, which on one hand, yes, it can be a layer of security because you see, okay, this is the addresses where the assets are at. They're there. We didn't take them out in the sense that we didn't rob them, but what people tend to forget in the case of centralized exchanges is that the money can be today there, and tomorrow the exchange can do whatever with it. It can be like poof, gone in an instant. This is not really, it's just a smoke screen of having this additional layer of security that the money is there. But since the centralized exchange has custody over your assets, it doesn't matter that today they're there, tomorrow they can use them, and they can mess up and you get to lose your assets.
Yeah. Talking about centralized exchanges, we have here a centralized exchange minimalist, Julian. He's not really also not a very big fan of centralized exchanges, and I can understand that, of course, now with the FTX collapse. Do you think that this FTX as like the second biggest exchange that collapsed, that this will open the door for decentralized exchanges?
Well, definitely this is a great opportunity for decentralized finance, but at the same time, the market is a bit shaky overall. We've seen, a lot of users back out of centralized exchanges, but at the same time, we've seen some users, even on our side, back out from liquidity pools. So you never really know how things are going to evolve from now on. But what we do know is that the only way of moving forward or moving past this, no matter how bad things get, is to just continue building. because as mentioned before, when it comes to centralized exchanges, you basically have to trust a bunch of people with your assets, whilst in DeFi you have to trust code with your assets, and that's a completely different story. Of course, things can go wrong on either side, but as long as DeFi continues to evolve and creates a more, let's say, cohesive and secure ecosystem for users, then I think we can really get back on track and actually take a shot at decentralizing everything. I think at least in the foreseeable futures, there's a high chance of actually seeing decentralized exchanges, take over in some measure centralized exchanges, or vice versa, seeing a lot of centralized exchanges wanting to invest and wanting to go DeFi. I think Binance has already expressed interest in wanting to go decentralized and mentioned that, okay, I think Binance said that DeFi is the future or something like that. And I strongly believe that decentralized financial instruments are going to be more widely used even by centralized exchanges until we reach a point of, let's say, at least a semi-decentralized phase. Because the thing with decentralization is that people kind of, including myself, not talking as a team member, but as an individual, we kind of want the advantages of decentralization, but we also want the advantages of centralization without any of the downsides. And this is where kind of things go south for people, because if they go centralized, they see the associated risks and they're like, okay, I'm not going to do that. That's not safe. It's basically just like a bank. If they go bankrupt, I'm out of money. Decentralization, on the other hand, it's very difficult, at least as a first-time user, to understand how some instruments work. If you're a day trader, maybe it's a bit difficult to use the current decentralized exchanges technology and tools that they offer. So it's, I think, I don't know, in the foreseeable future, I think it's going to somehow be like a merge between centralization and decentralization.
Yeah, it's also what I think. I think they will, somehow will coexist someday. Just to circle back before we're gonna move, we're gonna talk more about DeFi, CeFi, and DEXs and centralized exchanges, and of course cross-chain liquidity aggregation, and what it takes for a decentralized exchange to get more familiar and to get more popular amongst traders. Is could you briefly talk about the pools? You mentioned already the pools, the liquidity mining pool. So what kind of pools does change finance facilitate in order to earn passive income?
Well, for the moment, we have three types of liquidity pools. We have the spot liquidity pools, which is just the regular type, where you pool two assets, one against the other. We have futures liquidity pools, which are the ones that have no impermanent loss and are probably the safest ones during a bear market. And we also have options liquidity pools, which are for a bit more advanced users who are familiar with how decentralized options work and are, as rewarding as they may be, they're a bit riskier for newcomers. So I guess what I would recommend for someone who hasn't used the Change app or hasn't gotten familiarized with the concepts of even impermanent loss, because there's a lot to study there as well, to just go for futures liquidity pools. You time frame an asset, you still get to keep custody of it. You pair it up with the spot asset, and then at the end of the year, you're going to have in your hand the spot asset with the interest included, everything being backtopped and enforced by code. There's not a entity or some I don't know, centralized institution that says, okay, this will this will return to you because I say so. It's going to be the code that that makes that happen, regardless of what happens to change.
Yeah, in trust we code, right? In trust we code. In code we trust, or the other way around. Maybe it can be both. But I think even trust trusts code. Um, yeah, that's about would love to like share a little bit my own experience about the app and why I think that passive income is and why it works for me. So what I did is I pulled, I think, $25,000 or 20K, something like that, in a in the pool spot, and then 20K time framed. So my personal preference is I want to get out whenever I want, and that's also what the app facilitates. So if like someday I decide to get out of the pool, I can get out of the pool. And also what I like is you don't need to wait to claim your reward, so you get yield. And for that yield, so in some exchanges or some platforms, you need to wait a certain time, let's say 1 month or 1 week, or let's say maybe even a year before you can get your yield. But with Change Finance, you can basically claim your rewards every single second actually of the day, and I think that's a really nice thing. But me, like personally, what I'm sometimes missing, Owana, is a maybe this has already been mentioned, but like a function like that automates, let's say the rewards, and and then allocates that money to a different pool, for example. Maybe you have heard this before.
This is actually some feedback that we did get before. For the moment, we did decide to leave it as is because the automatic retrieval of rewards does involve some costs. So even if it's like 0.00000 FSN or whatnot, we want to let the user decide when he wants to get his rewards. If we do this, or if we offer the user some options, maybe like you can let's say restake this or time frame your assets after this amount of time. If even after the maturity date, we could automatize this. After the maturity date, instead of liquidating and giving you these spot assets, we could automatically just repull them or something like that. We thought that would kind of turn off the users that want to actually see that money come in. I don't know if you've noticed, but it does get a bit addictive. The fact that you can get your rewards like any second and you can claim them every day gives you that feeling that you always make money, and you do. Although it's a small amount if you claim it like every minute or something, but it does give the user this feeling of control, and not only control but the desire to look at, let's see how much money I made, let's take that out and do whatever I want with it. So
Yeah.
while we are considering this option of having this automatic process of the user being able to choose whether he wants to make the app claim the rewards and do something with them at specific I don't know, let's say at specific dates or at specific times during the day, we still prefer having the user, go into the app, see how much he made, and make that decision for himself, because it does encourage a bit more research as well. Because after you receive the rewards, for example, if you do it once, twice, I don't know, 3 times, and decide I'm just going to keep my time frame change rewards here until the maturity date. When you do it the 10th time, you're going to notice that you can actually write options with your time framed assets. So it kind of encourages the user to look more into what he can do with those rewards. It's just our way of encouraging users to not only claim the assets but look what they can do with the rewards they get.
Yeah, that's fair enough, and I think you just exposed one of my personality characteristics, and that's I'm maybe a little bit a control freak. Every day, I think I claim my rewards every day. And for those who are curious, I'm in the use the T time frame, use the T, and use the T pool. Which generates, I think last time I checked, 50 or 55% APY, but it's APY on the spot. But still, it's not bad, and I think it's really good. It at least it defeats inflation, which
Yeah.
is really a good thing, and even more than that. Um, let me check. One, we also talked like sometimes when we trade, liquidity is sometimes an issue, right? Not only on a centralized exchange, but sometimes, or maybe even also on a decentralized exchange, because the liquidity is not there. How can a decentralized exchange solve this problem?
Well, for us, I'm not gonna say it was easy, but basically we decided to start aggregating liquidity from other exchanges. We became a cross-chain liquidity aggregator, actually the first cross-chain liquidity aggregator, and I'm going to get back to that because I know there's going to be people jumping around. You're not the first, there's others, and blah blah. And once we implemented the smart router algorithm, we started aggregating liquidity from about 20 dexes, I think. I mean, the most liquid ones, Uniswap, SushiSwap, Trader Joe, and all of those. Then we integrated 1inch, which is another aggregator, and OpenOcean. So basically, at the moment, we aggregate liquidity from 20 dexes, 20 something dexes, and two aggregators. What this means is that we are very liquid. It means that basically, when you make a swap in the Change app, you can access liquidity from all of these dexes combined. And going back to being cross-chain means that not only can we access liquidity from these dexes on one chain, we can actually access liquidity from several chains at the same time. So let's say, and this is something that only the Change Smart Router can do. Let's say if you want to, I don't know, split exchange, I don't know, 10 million USDT, right? Or a huge amount of assets. If you're going to go into any DEX, even some centralized exchanges, you're not going to find that type of liquidity there. There's just not enough assets in the specific pool so that you can actually get a good trade. You're going to see a huge amount of slippage. You're going to see like 50% slippage. You're going to get a lot less dime for your assets, right? So basically,
Yeah.
in the Change app, what we do, aside from aggregating liquidity from all of these dexes, which is, in the first place, a good thing, what's extraordinary is that we can actually split your transaction across several chains. So if you're going to swap that 10 million USDT into BTC, we're going to be able to split your transactions on, I don't know, Ethereum, BSC, Avalanche, depending on which chains are the most liquid at the time of your swap. And then at the end of the swap, you're just going to see all of the steps in your in your order detail section, and you're going to actually see on which chain your transaction was performed. If you're going to see that part of your transaction was performed on Ethereum, part was performed on Avalanche, and that's the way that the smart router optimizes the slippage. It ensures that you get as low as slippage as possible, and you get actually the best prices on the market.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Just for my brain to understand this, let me try to summarize this for myself. Is so with the cross-chain aggregator, basically the DEX taps into different liquidity of other decentralized exchanges.
Yes, correct.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. And what about the fees? Is the fees then done through like is it then paid by the native token, or how does it work?
In the app, you actually have two options. You can either choose to pay the the fee in FSN and whatever the native blockchain coin is, or you can choose to pay in change tokens. Meaning, what we're going to do in the background, if you go for this, is we're just going to buy the change for you with the assets that you have. But this just makes the user experience more friendly, and the fees, go through the respective blockchains that are involved in the transactions. For example, if Ethereum is involved in the transaction, you can automatically assume that you're going to see a slightly bigger transaction fee there. You can
Yeah.
also choose the optimize fee toggle, which basically will direct your transaction towards a bit less liquid chains. But on the other hand, you're going to get a better fee. So for example, let's say if you want to swap 100 USDT for Ethereum, and you choose to optimize the fee, it won't necessarily take you on the Ethereum blockchain, just to avoid that big fee. Because if you swap a small amount of assets, you actually might see that the benefit of swapping them on a more liquid chain is not necessarily a real benefit in this case, because the fee might be just much higher than what you gain off of lowering your slippage. So it's always kind of paying attention to what you get, because in the app you're going to see displayed, okay, if I optimize the toggle, this is what I get, but I'm going to pay a lower fee, versus I'm not going to select the toggle and I'm going to pay probably a higher fee if an expensive chain is involved in the transaction, but I am going to get the best slippage possible. So it's kind of the user has to decide for himself, because it usually depends on how much they swap. Usually for larger swaps, an Ethereum fee is not going to make a difference at all, because it's $50. But if you're going to go for a $100 swap, then yeah, that fee could possibly ruin you and your plan.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's also totally true. So about the fees, like, is it just like on Uniswap, for example, that you see the fees in advance, or is it after the transaction that you see how much you exactly have paid in fees?
You're actually going to see before you make the transaction how much you get. So based on that, you can assume that the fees are included.
Yeah. Do you think like that liquidity is a major issue for many decentralized exchanges? Because I know there are lots of decentralized exchanges, and some of them they just don't have enough users. And if you don't have enough users, you don't have enough market makers. If you don't have enough market makers, you don't have enough liquidity, and then the decentralized exchange won't have liquidity, and thus it makes it difficult to do transactions on that. Do you think that that's the major issues decentralized exchanges have, liquidity issues?
Yes, decentralized exchanges, just as some centralized exchanges do have liquidity issues. I think this is one of the main issues that we try to solve by aggregating liquidity from other decentralized exchanges. The fact that you have very limited liquidity, and there are not a lot of pairs and not a lot of assets and a lot of decentralized exchanges that you can actually swap, that were probably the most pressing matters when it came to users trying to switch to DeFi. So when it comes to liquidity, this is a huge issue. And at the same time, regardless of the common user issues with liquidity, when it comes to what we refer to as whales, or institutions or business people moving a lot of money around, then that becomes even a more serious problem. So they're naturally going to go to centralized exchanges like Coinbase or Binance, or wherever they know there's enough liquidity for their trades to go through. But now that there's Change is not the only liquidity aggregator out there. There's also 1inch, which we also integrated. There's OpenOcean. I think there's also Orion, and I know Rango. There's a lot of liquidity aggregators out there. So, and all of them are trying in their own way to solve this liquidity issue. I guess the thing that makes Change stand out is the fact that we can do it cross chain instead of aggregating liquidity on one single chain per transaction. We can do it through multiple chains, which does offer us the benefit of being more liquid than others.
Yeah, that makes perfectly sense. About cross-chain, maybe we have audience who don't really understand cross-chain, but they are really interested in decentralized exchanges. How would you explain cross-chain in plain language?
Well, it's basically like you have a lot of chains, which I think the most popular being Ethereum, BNB, Polygon, Avalanche, all of these chains that are kind of, let's say, isolated silos, ecosystems in their own way, because they all have their benefits. This chain has good speed. This chain has, I don't know, a strong infrastructure. And I love the fact that you can build this and this and that on top of it. All of these chains, they can separately have their own benefits, but users, as they go into these let's say isolated communities, they kind of lose track of what's happening around. And if they don't, they're going to try and take advantage of different opportunities on different chains, right? If they don't go like fully maxis on some specific technology, then they're going to look around and they're going to notice all of the different chains that are on the market, and they're going to say, okay, I like that my USDT is on this chain because I want to take advantage of this opportunity here, and I want to do margin trading here and blah blah. But then if he sees another product built on a different chain, like, I don't know, let's say for passive income, they see Change Finance, and they're going to want to go to Change Finance and basically pool their assets or time frame their assets or do something to derive some passive income, then they're going to be presented with a problem of, my assets are on the BNB chain or on the, I don't know, Polygon chain, and I have to get them onto this chain. So this is basically what cross-chain is supposed to be, like moving assets from one chain to another chain in a very easy, straightforward way. Until now, DeFi has done, a partially decent job at this, because you can see there's a lot of bridges, and bridges have always been there, not always, but have been there from the beginning. They gradually started building bridges, but at some point you gotta think to yourself that there has to be a better way, because with bridges you have to wait. Basically, that can be from 10 minutes up to 5 hours, depending on the bridge and the amount of assets you're using and how liquid the bridge is, because bridges are usually very liquid. They don't have a lot of liquidity. So your transaction might be stuck for hours on different bridges. You also, if you have your assets split on several chains, then you're also going to have a problem, because you have to go back and forth, like, I don't know, a number of times. If you have them your assets split on 10 chains, you're going to have to go back and forth between 10 bridges, a couple of wallets, and possibly a couple of dexes if you want to actually add all of those assets up and swap them for something else. So what we did in Change in regards to the interoperability solution is we've made the cross-chain roaming technology help the user not have to deal with the bridges behind the actual transaction or operation. For example, if you want to you have USDT on Polygon, on BNB, and Ethereum. Okay, let's say as an example, and not go on like full 12 chains or something. And if you want to transfer those to the Fusion chain to, I don't know, do whatever you want to do with them, then what you have to do in the Change app is simply tap on your receiving address on the specific chain and send the assets to yourself. You don't have to go bridge all of these assets from all of these chains one at a time. You can just select the chain, you can input the amount you want to send to that specific chain, and in the background, our router is basically going to pick up your assets from whatever chains you have them on and just transfer them automatically. So, this helps a lot in terms of time, in terms of fees, in terms of, security because of the CRM tech I mentioned. So, that's what I guess would be the basics of cross-chain functionality for someone that's, interested in it. But there's a lot of cases where, users or people don't really care about cross-chain stuff. They have their assets on one single chain, and this doesn't really represent an issue. But I'm pretty sure that in the future, as the technology evolves and a lot of blockchains just start popping up left and right with different technologies, it's if we don't find a solution for it fast, it's going to become a real issue for the coming users. So that's why we try to just do this out front and not have to get there and see what happens, and just have a solution for it at hand.
Yeah, that makes perfectly sense. That a DEX also facilitates in cross chain. Um, I see a few questions. Let's go through a few questions. We have here our friend C Run. He's asking here, do bridges still pose security risks? Hacks.
Yeah, yeah, they do. It depends on the bridge you're using. There's a lot of bridges out there. That's the reason I actually mentioned that security is one of the top reasons we've decided to go with the DCRM approach. If you use a, I don't know, no name bridge, or I don't know, bridge that hasn't been audited, or even one that has been and has a great reputation, but you're not sure of the security aspects of it, then yeah, you're going to somewhat take a risk by using bridges, especially when you can have assets stuck on the bridge for long periods of time. That's why, and in the Change app, when you do a cross-chain transaction or a cross-chain operation, it usually doesn't take more than 2 or 3 minutes for the transaction to go through.
Thank you so much for answering that question, Awana. I think you shared a lot. And ladies and gentlemen, people who are listening now here on YouTube or on Twitter or later to this recording, give please Awana a like. Give this recording a like. Give this video a like. She's sharing here a lot of information about decentralized exchanges, how you can use them, why cross-chain is important, and how to actually determine if a decentralized exchange should deserve a red flag or not. So if you see high APYs or a team that has not a good track record, or they never conduct any smart contracts, or then then you should be suspicious. Always try to be sharp, ladies and gentlemen. I think Awana shared here a lot of information. I would say give Awana a. Are you also active on Twitter, Awana?
No, I'm not active on Twitter right now, but you can reach out to me on Telegram.
Yeah.
Or you can just shoot a DM or a comment on our Twitter, and my colleagues will make sure to give me a nudge and let me know if you guys have any questions.
So the Twitter is Change Finance, or was it Finance Change?
It's Finance Change.
Yeah, at Finance Change. Change with AINGE. So that's that change. Yeah, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any questions, please drop them later in on Discord. I will answer them. Yeah, thank you very much. And by the way, we also are doing a giveaway. If you are paying patient, then you would have seen the secret giveaway code. It's FTC 2022. There's a giveaway link, Gleam.io. Fill in your details and you might win some nice things. And yeah, thank you very much, people who are listening and who are listening also to this recording. And also, especially big shout out to Awana. Thank you very much for your time. I know she was working since 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. It's already 7 p.m. She's working really hard. Nonetheless, she was committed to this live stream to share a lot of alpha with you. So give her also a big thank you, and thank you very much, guys. Have a nice evening.
It's been a pleasure. Bye bye.